we're sending out $31 million to dead people. If you don't cheat on your wife, then maybe you beat your wife. If you don't beat your wife,
But I
then
mean,
maybe
wait,
you're
hold on, bro.
like
Hold on. If you
everyone's
beat
bad.
your wife, you probably shouldn't be in government, though, right?
But what if they're good at their job? The fact that you and me will probably never see $1 of Social Security, that should anger us, and it's
That's
because
not true.
$31 million.
That's not true. We're absolutely going to see Social Security. Okay, guys, episode 4 of Uncommon Grounds. My podcast is out now. The first link in the description will take you there. If you haven't heard of it already, make sure to subscribe to the Substack. We get a new episode every Wednesday at 12 p.m. and a new article on the Substack almost every day. But I have a few clips from the podcast to look over. It got pretty spicy this week, and we'll jump back in as always with the needed context.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on him obviously is Big Balls is hilarious, but would be that it's hard because on one hand, if we start looking at everyone's personal lives, we won't have a government because everyone sucks and everyone's bad and everyone.
I don't think everyone's racist and wants to do
Maybe not racist, but if you're not
and
a racist,
eugenics?
then you cheat on your wife. If you don't cheat on your wife, then maybe you beat your wife. If you don't beat your wife,
But I
then
mean,
maybe
wait,
you're
hold on, bro.
like
Hold on.
everyone's
If you beat
bad.
your wife, you probably shouldn't be in government, though, right? Like we can agree on that, right? This was the first moment in our discussion that was a bit crazy to me. You'll have to watch the full episode for the entirety because he leans even more into the insanity than this, but it comes down to the fact that the government is meant to serve the people. We are a diverse group of peoples that they would be serving. We should not have people in government or doing government oversight that has preconceived biases about people based off immutable characteristics, whether it be sexual orientation, race, gender, whatever. Thus, Musk rehiring a neo-Nazi who pushed for eugenics and bragging about being racist is disqualifying entirely. He tries to make the case, my co-host here, that, and a lot of MAGA feels this way, that despite whatever your personal beliefs may be, we should not use those to discriminate against you in the hiring process, which, I mean, I guess when I say it at that bare bones of a way, sure, but when it's racism, I mean, obviously, when it's discrimination and biases that you yourself hold, it obviously opens the door to different conversations. Rather, he thinks we should trust you and only act after your bias affects your job. The problem with this obviously is we're rolling the dice and we're putting everyday people who lean on the government in harm's way. We're even allowing them to have harm done to them in this worldview to where only after would we prevent it when it could easily be prevented just by not allowing this to be a possibility. If someone brags online about being racist and wanting to do eugenics, I think it's an easy stance that they shouldn't be in government or service looking over people that they might have these opinions on. I do want to add one more thing real quick. This kind of idea of like coming in and mass gutting agencies and doing these like huge regulation cuts and things are not always a good thing. We saw Trump do this when he first came in office. He cut the top 100 FAA like flight officials. He cut the Aviation Safety Committee. He cut like a bunch of people in aviation and air traffic control. He freezed hiring with it. He gutted these agencies. And then we saw the first crash that led to multiple deaths in over a decade in America. So like the idea that coming in and just like mass gutting agencies just recklessly because it'll save money is like a good thing isn't, when a lot of the times we see it end up with negative consequences like that.
And I'd say causation, correlation, fallacy doesn't necessarily have any attachment to that.
Oh, I would say it absolutely does.
It
I don't think you can make the argument that it doesn't. One, especially when it hasn't happened in the last 13 to 14 decades, like the idea that it would just be a coincidence that unprecedentedly these things that are specifically for traffic control and air safety get gutted, and then we see the first crash in over a decade where these things happen. I think that like pretending that would be a coincidence is one, crazy, and two, you can easily draw causation to how less safety employees, less safety committees, less just traffic control employees would lead to a less safe environment. I think that the causation is clearly there. This was such a weird defense to me because I think I was making a very prescient point here that is hard to counter for these anti-regulations heads who just want to blanket cut regulations because they're regulations. The causation is pretty evident here. Correlation would be like saying, because Trump was president and this happened under him, it's his fault. Or like when MAGA says that DEI policies existing caused the bridge crash, but they couldn't connect the DEI crashes to DI policies to the bridge, to the boat, to the crash, to anything, or elaborate on how. But when we see traffic control hiring frozen, the top 100 FAA officials fired, the Aviation Safety Committee fired, these sort of safety regulations mass gutted, where we also now know that they were just searching inequity, inclusion, and deleting everything, leading to pages they shouldn't have deleted, getting deleted. And then days later, things start happening that show that these flights are made less safe, like the first plane crash with over multiple deaths in over a decade. Then we see another plane crash a few days later. I think you'd be hard pressed to make the case that less safety regulation, less traffic staff, less safety committees, less top officials who know what they're doing didn't lead to the flights being less safe.
We need to cut back on government waste. $31 million to dead people. That should anger every American. I mean, the fact that you and me will probably never see $1 of Social Security, that should anger us, and it's because $31 million.
That's not true. We're absolutely going to see Social Security.
We'll see. I'd
it's
like
not
to
even
believe
questionable. It's just so everyone knows we're not doing Social Security propaganda here. Social Security will be safe. But I wanted to touch on this too, because anytime Republicans are in office, obviously attacks on Social Security come back around. So we'll probably have a more fleshed out debate about this, though there isn't really a debate to be had. Social Security isn't at risk. It's going to be fine. And there's virtually no worry of it ceasing to exist outside of Republicans literally doing away with it. People who want to fearmonger about it are wanting you to not think of the assets and rather just worry about the liabilities, where they just want you to consider the liability of, oh, there's so many people taking money from it. Our population is growing. We're retiring earlier and earlier. The money will evaporate. This leaves out the crucial context of increases in worker productivity, which as we produce more as a society, obviously there's more money in the economy to be taken from and put into Social Security as well. This will continue throughout the entirety of our lives. Productivity will go up. We will continue to work, which will allow for Social Security to survive completely as is. If we did nothing to it, we would still literally get Social Security. If we wanted to make it even more solidified in a strong system, we would remove the caps on how we tax income for Social Security, where we actually stop doing it at a certain amount, which benefits the wealthiest people in the society and also prevents how much revenue we're really putting into Social Security. But again, Republicans, conservatives will never mention any of this because they would rather just do doomerism and trick you into thinking that we need to privatize it, essentially, because that would be better for their own profit pocketbooks, not for your retirement. The only people trying to convince you that Social Security is bad are people that won't have to rely on it, which is a privilege. They just want to keep what they're paying into it for themselves. Social Security keeps 2/3 of our seniors out of poverty and will continue to do so if Republicans don't have a say in destroying it.